The small ship named Aurora drifted silently through space. Its engines hummed weakly as it moved between broken asteroids and floating dust. Inside the ship, a young mechanic named Rami worked with tired hands. He had not slept in 2 days. The rest of his crew had gone missing after the storm that hit them near the edge of a dead star. The communication system failed, and now he was alone. Rami sat in front of the control panel, his eyes fixed on the blinking lights. He tried to send a signal to the nearest colony, but every message bounced back with static. The power core was damaged and his food supplies were getting low. The silence inside the ship felt heavier than the vacuum outside. He whispered to himself, "Just one signal. Any signal." The scanner in front of him flickered for a second. Then a strange sound filled the room. It was not noise or static. It was rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Rami stared at the screen. The source of the signal came from a planet nearby. The planet had no name in his database. It was covered in mist and surrounded by a thin blue ring of light. Rami leaned closer and adjusted the signal decoder. The sound changed into a pattern of words that repeated over and over. He froze when he saw the translation appear on the screen. It said, "Come home." He checked again, thinking it was an error, but the message kept repeating, calm and steady. "Come home." Rami looked at the planet through the window. It was beautiful but strange. The clouds seemed alive, moving like soft waves. His heart raced. He thought about leaving it alone, but the word home echoed in his mind. He had no family waiting for him on any colony. He had no reason to return to empty stations. Maybe this was something new, something worth finding. He took a deep breath and said to himself, "If this is a trap, at least I won't die bored." He set the ship's course for the planet. The engines roared weakly, but they held together. The mist around the world shimmered with tiny flashes of light as he entered the atmosphere. The ship rattled and the view outside changed from dark space to glowing clouds. When the ship broke through the mist, Rami saw a forest stretching as far as his eyes could see. The trees were tall and glowing blue. Streams of silver light flowed through the ground like rivers made of stars. The air was clear, and small lights floated around like gentle fireflies. Rami landed the Aurora near a valley where the signal was strongest. He stepped outside wearing his protective suit. The ground beneath his boots was soft and warm. He looked around, amazed. Everything was silent but not empty. It felt like the whole forest was breathing. He checked his scanner again. The signal was close, maybe 1 or 2 kilometers ahead. The words on the screen still flashed slowly, "Come home." Rami started walking. The trees around him moved slightly as if they were watching him. Strange symbols glowed on the bark, forming lines that pulsed when he passed by. He felt a chill but kept moving. The deeper he went, the brighter the forest became. He could see floating stones hovering a few inches above the ground. They were covered with carvings that looked ancient. When he touched one, it gave off a faint hum. Suddenly his scanner beeped loudly. The signal was right in front of him. He pushed through a curtain of vines and found an open space. In the middle stood a large structure made of silver stone shaped like a dome. It looked both old and alive. The walls glowed softly, and the ground was covered in white dust that sparkled under his feet. Rami approached the entrance. It opened on its own with a gentle hiss. Inside, the air was cooler. Light moved along the walls, forming patterns that shifted every few seconds. He followed a long hallway that led to a round chamber. At the center of the chamber stood a tall crystal pod. It was surrounded by floating lights that moved in slow circles. Rami could feel the hum of energy in the air. He raised his scanner, but the readings made no sense. The energy levels were higher than anything he had ever seen. The pod began to glow brighter. Rami stepped back. He tried to call his ship, but the signal was blocked. The glow turned golden, and cracks formed along the crystal surface. Then the pod opened with a soft sound like a sigh. Inside stood a figure, tall and graceful with smooth skin that shimmered like metal touched by sunlight. Her eyes were bright gold, and her hair floated slightly as if the air around her carried invisible waves. She looked at him calm and curious. Rami's heart pounded. He had seen many alien species before during his work, but nothing like this. She was different. Not mechanical, not monstrous, but elegant, almost human. The figure stepped out of the pod. Her voice was soft and warm when she spoke. "You came back to me, my human." Rami's mouth went dry. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know you. Who are you?" She smiled, a gentle curve that seemed to carry sadness and relief at the same time. "I am Alara, Queen of Lumeria. You may not remember me, but your kind once walked beside mine. Rami looked around. The chamber walls began to move, showing images made of light, humans standing beside tall golden beings. Cities made of crystal, ships flying together through stars. It was like a dream painted in light. Rami whispered, "This can't be real." Ilara walked closer until she stood in front of him. "It is real," she said softly. "Long ago your ancestors lived among us. When the Great War came, they returned to the dark world you now call Earth. I have searched for them since then. I have searched for you." Rami did not move. His mind filled with questions, but his body felt frozen. He could feel warmth coming from her. Not heat, but something that touched his thoughts. She reached out and placed her hand gently over his chest. "Your heart remembers even if your mind does not," she said. The walls glowed brighter, and the lights around them formed patterns like stars. Rami felt dizzy, and for a second he saw flashes of places he had never been. Tall towers, endless skies, and faces that looked like his but wore strange armor. When the vision ended, he gasped for breath. Ilara stepped back, her eyes full of emotion. "You see now," she said. "This is your home too." Rami stood in silence. The forest outside whispered softly through the open doorway. He looked at her again, unsure if he was dreaming or standing in the middle of a forgotten truth. For the first time since his crew vanished, he did not feel alone, and somewhere deep in his heart, he began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had truly come home. Rami stood frozen in the shining chamber. The air felt alive with quiet music that seemed to come from the walls. He looked at the tall alien woman who called herself Ilara, the Queen of Lumeria. Her golden eyes watched him with a strange mix of hope and sorrow. He tried to understand what she meant by calling him her human. "I don't remember any of this," Rami said carefully. "I don't know your world or your people." Ilara tilted her head slightly. "You would not. The memory of the old alliance was buried long before you were born. Your kind forgot who they were, but your blood remembers." Her words confused him, yet something inside him felt heavy, as if her voice was unlocking forgotten feelings. Rami looked around again. The glowing patterns on the walls changed shape, forming gentle waves of light that spread through the room. The light gathered around Ilara like a crown made of stars. "Why did you send that signal?" he asked quietly, her eyes softened. "I did not send it. The temple did. It was waiting for someone with the old code, and that code is in you. When your ship came close, the temple woke. It called you home." Rami looked at his hands. He felt normal, human, fragile. Yet the temple had reacted to him as if he belonged here. He did not understand how it was possible. Ilara walked to the edge of the chamber and placed her hand on the wall. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a long corridor filled with soft golden light. She turned to him and said, "Come with me. There is something you must see." Rami hesitated for a moment, then followed. His boots made quiet sounds on the smooth floor. The air smelled like rain and warm stone. The corridor opened into a wide garden that took his breath away. It was unlike any place he had ever seen. The ceiling above was made of clear crystal, showing a purple sky filled with glowing clouds. Trees with silver leaves grew in circles, and the ground was covered with blue flowers that sparkled when touched by light. Streams of golden water ran through the garden, and soft music echoed from nowhere. "This is the Queen's garden," Ilara said gently. "It was built long ago when our two kinds shared this world. The air here keeps life alive. It listens to emotion and grows with it." Rami stepped forward, kneeling near the glowing flowers. When he touched one, it opened and a warm pulse ran through his hand. The petals changed color, turning white. Ilara smiled faintly. "It responds to you. The bond is still there." He looked up at her. "You said my kind lived here once. Why did they leave?" Ilara's smile faded. She looked toward the far wall where ancient carvings glowed softly. "There was a great war. A shadow rose from beyond the stars. It tried to destroy everything that carried light. My people fought beside the humans, but the cost was terrible. To save your kind, the last leaders opened a path back to your birth world. They erased your memories and sent you home far away from the war. Since then, I have searched the skies for the return of your signal. For thousands of years I waited." Rami's chest felt tight. The idea that humanity had once been part of a galactic alliance sounded impossible. Yet the sadness in her voice made him believe she was telling the truth. He could not look away from her glowing eyes. "If what you say is true," he said softly, Why find me now? Ilara turned to face him. Because the shadow that destroyed our worlds has returned. The machines that serve it have begun to hunt again. I need the help of your kind to bring back the balance. But only one who carries the old code can awaken the power of the Alliance. That one is you. Rami's heart beat faster. He looked down at his hands again, unsure what she meant. I am only a mechanic. I fix engines. I can't fight a war. The Queen stepped closer. Her presence was calm but strong. The blood of your ancestors carries more than memory. It carries power. When you touched the temple wall, it answered you. That means the link still lives. She placed her hand gently over his. A warm light spread between their palms. The light rose in the air and formed shapes above them. Shining symbols that looked like stars connected by thin golden lines. Rami felt a strange pulse inside his chest, beating in rhythm with the light. He saw short visions again, humans in white armor working beside luminous beings, ships flying together through endless space, and then a dark cloud swallowing everything. When the vision ended, Rami gasped and stepped back, breathing hard. Ilara lowered her hand and said quietly, "Now you understand." Rami rubbed his forehead. The visions felt real, like memories hidden deep inside him. "What do you want me to do?" "For now, only to listen and remember," she said. "The rest will come in time." They walked through the garden together. The flowers bowed slightly as they passed. Rami felt peace for the first time in many days. It was strange how natural this place felt to him, as if he had been here before in another life. At the far end of the garden stood a large pool of golden water. Its surface was still and glowing. Ilara stopped beside it and pointed toward the water. "Look," Rami leaned over the edge. The reflection that stared back at him was not his normal face. His eyes glowed faintly blue, and strange lines of light ran across his skin like veins of energy. He jumped back in surprise. "What happened to me?" he asked. Ilara's voice was calm. "The energy of this world is reacting to your true nature. The more time you spend here, the more your body remembers what it once was." Rami stared at the water again. He saw the glow fading slowly as he calmed down. He tried to think of his home on Earth, but now it felt far away and small. A sudden tremor shook the ground. The flowers closed at once and the light in the garden dimmed. Ilara's eyes turned sharp. "The guards of the shadow are near. They have found us." Rami looked around in fear. The air vibrated with a low hum that grew louder. From the far side of the temple came flashes of red light. Machines with long limbs and black armor stepped out of the mist. Their eyes burned with cold fire. Ilara raised her hand and a golden shield formed around them. "Stay behind me," she said firmly. Rami's heart pounded. He had never seen such creatures. They moved like predators, fast and silent. The first one fired a bolt of red energy at them, but it broke against her shield with a loud crack. Ilara's voice was calm, but strong. "They serve the darkness. They seek to destroy all who carry light. We must protect the seed of memory at any cost." Rami swallowed hard. "What can I do?" "Believe in what you are," she said. "Your power will answer your heart." He felt fear, but also something else, and a strange warmth growing inside his chest. The garden lights began to pulse again, and the golden water behind him shimmered. The machines took another step forward, ready to strike. Ilara lifted her other hand. The air around her turned bright as she prepared to fight. Rami stood beside her, unsure but determined. He knew his life had changed forever. In that moment, he realized the truth. He was no longer just a lost mechanic. He was the last spark of a forgotten people, and the fate of two worlds had somehow fallen into his hands. The battle for the past was about to begin. The ground shook under Rami's boots as the machines marched through the mist. Their bodies were made of black metal, smooth and sharp, with glowing red lines running along their limbs. Each step they took left a burning mark on the ground. Rami's heart pounded fast, but he stood beside Ilara, who faced the intruders with calm strength. The golden shield around them flickered as another blast of red light hit it. Sparks of energy scattered across the air. Rami could feel the heat against his face even through his suit. Ilara lifted her hand higher. Golden streams of light poured from her fingers and spread like wings around them. The shield grew stronger. The machine stopped for a moment, their red eyes watching her. Rami noticed that they seemed almost alive, like creatures made of anger and cold will. "These are the Shadow's servants," Ilara said softly but firmly. "They are called the Dracs. They obey no voice but the one that commands the darkness." Rami swallowed hard. Can we fight them? Ilara looked at him and nodded once. Together we can. Before he could ask how, she placed her hand on his chest. The mark she left there in the garden began to glow. Warmth spread through his body. His vision blurred for a moment, and then he saw the world differently. The air was filled with light patterns invisible before, moving like flowing energy. Ilara's voice echoed gently in his mind. Follow my rhythm. Let the light answer you. Rami took a deep breath. He raised his hands the same way she did. When another Drax fired, the blast stopped in midair and dissolved into harmless sparks. Rami stared in shock, realizing that the energy came from him. Ilara gave him a brief smile. You see now, the power of your ancestors sleeps in your blood. Let it wake. The Drax moved again. This time Ilara and Rami stepped forward together. Her golden energy swirled around her like a storm of stars, while his light burned a pale blue. When their power met, it formed a barrier that threw the machines back. The battle was fierce but beautiful. Golden and blue lights crossed the air like rivers, breaking the red beams of the Drax. Each time Rami moved, the energy followed his will. He had never felt such strength before. The machines began to fall one by one, their armor cracking under the waves of light. When the last one fell, silence filled the temple again. Smoke rose from the broken ground. The flowers in the garden slowly opened once more as if the danger had passed. Rami dropped to his knees, breathing hard. His body shook from exhaustion, but he felt alive. Ilara lowered her hands, her glow dimming to a soft shimmer. You did well, she said. The old bond is still strong in you. Rami looked up at her, still trying to catch his breath. I don't understand what is happening to me. I was just a mechanic. How can I do any of this? Ilara walked closer, her golden eyes gentle. Because you are more than what you believed. Long ago, humans and Lumerians shared one heart. You were creators, explorers, builders of light. The machines you fought were made to destroy that bond, but your kind escaped and the memory was buried in your world's dust. Now you stand between what was lost and what can be rebuilt. Her words filled Rami with wonder and fear. Why me? Why not someone stronger, someone trained for this? Ilara smiled faintly. Because you listened to the call. That is enough. She turned toward the far wall of the chamber and touched a glowing crystal. The wall shifted, opening to reveal a vast room filled with floating orbs of light. Each orb showed a different scene. Strange worlds, tall cities, and creatures of many shapes. This is the archive of stars, she said. It holds the memory of every Alliance world. When the war began, many were lost. Only fragments remain. You are connected to these memories through your bloodline. You are the key to waking them again. Rami stepped closer. One of the orbs floated near him and began to glow brighter. Inside it, he saw humans working beside golden beings like Ilara's people. They were building huge ships that could cross galaxies. The sight was breathtaking. Ilara pointed at the image. Your ancestors called themselves the Starborn. They could shape energy with thought just as you did today. They helped my people grow gardens in the stars. But when the darkness rose, they vanished. Some say they fled to save the seed of light within them. That seed is you. Rami looked at her with wide eyes. If this is true, then Earth was never meant to be alone. She nodded slowly. Yes, and now that you are here, the path to unity can open again. But the Drax will not stop. They will call their masters. We must leave this place before the next wave comes. Rami turned back toward the garden. The mist outside had thickened, glowing red in the distance. Where can we go? There is a safe haven, Ilara said. The Tower of Memory, far in the eastern valley. It holds the last beacon of the Alliance. If we reach it, I can send a message to the remaining free worlds. Rami nodded. Then let's go. They gathered supplies from the temple. Rami carried a small crystal core that Ilara said would help power his ship. Before they left, he looked once more at the chamber. The walls that had glowed so brightly were fading. He felt as if the place was saying goodbye. Outside, the forest shimmered under the faint light of twin moons. The air was cool and quiet except for the gentle hum of energy beneath the ground. Ilara walked ahead, her steps light. Rami followed, feeling a strange pull toward her presence. As they moved through the glowing trees, Ilara spoke softly. Do you feel it, Rami? The rhythm of this world? He listened carefully. At first, he heard only his footsteps and the soft breeze. Then he felt it, a steady beat like a heart beneath the soil. It pulsed in time with his own heartbeat. Yes, he said quietly. It feels alive. It is, she replied. This planet was once the center of the Alliance. Every tree and stone remembers the light we built together. That is why the Dracs hate it. They wish to silence all that remembers hope. They walked for hours. The forest slowly turned into a field of tall, glowing grass. The sky above shifted colors from purple to gold. Rami felt strength returning to him as they drew closer to the horizon. Suddenly, Alara stopped. Her golden eyes narrowed as she looked toward the distance. "They are following us," she said. Rami looked back and saw faint red lights moving between the trees. His stomach tightened. "We need to move faster." Alara nodded and placed her hand on the crystal pendant she wore. It glowed brightly, and the ground beneath them opened, revealing a hidden path of floating stones that stretched over a deep valley. "This way," she said. They crossed quickly. The air shimmered around them, and Rami could see the valley below filled with glowing rivers. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. When they reached the other side, Alara turned to him. "You have done well, Rami, but soon the true test will come. The shadow will not stop until it finds you." He looked at her with determination. "Then I will be ready." "I am not running anymore." For the first time, Alara smiled with pride. "You carry the courage of your ancestors. Remember that, and you will not fall." They continued walking toward the far mountains where the Tower of Memory waited, shining faintly in the distance. Behind them, the red lights of the Dracs flickered, chasing through the mist. The bond between human and Lumerian had been awakened again, and with it, the hope that the stars might remember what they once were. The twin moons hung low over the horizon as Rami and Alara moved through the glowing fields. The mist swirled around their legs, and the night was filled with quiet whispers of wind passing through silver grass. Far behind them, red lights flickered faintly, showing that the Dracs were still following. Rami tried not to look back, but he could feel their presence like a storm waiting to break. Alara walked ahead with calm steps, her golden light guiding the path. Rami carried the small crystal core she had given him, holding it close to his chest. It pulsed softly in rhythm with his heartbeat. "How far is the tower?" he asked. "Beyond the next ridge," she answered. "Once we reach it, I can awaken the beacon. It will call the free worlds that still remember the old alliance." Rami nodded, though his mind was full of questions. He wondered what would happen when the beacon was lit. Would other beings come to help them, or would the Dracs strike before anyone arrived? As they climbed the ridge, the ground trembled. A low humming sound grew louder behind them. Rami turned and saw red beams cutting through the mist. The Dracs were close. "They are faster than I expected," Alara said. Her calm voice carried a hint of urgency. "We must hurry." They ran through the glowing grass, their feet pounding the soft earth. The light from the Tower of Memory appeared ahead like a faint star. It stood tall and white against the dark sky, surrounded by floating stones that moved slowly around it. The closer they came, the louder Rami's crystal core pulsed. When they reached the base of the tower, Rami stopped to catch his breath. The tower's surface shimmered like liquid glass covered with glowing symbols. Alara placed her hand on the door and it opened with a bright light. "Inside," she said quickly. Rami followed her through a long hallway filled with blue light. The walls glowed brighter with each step they took. At the end of the hall, a circular room opened with a tall crystal pillar in the center. The pillar was surrounded by golden platforms that floated in the air. "This is the heart of the tower," Alara said. "The beacon sleeps here. We must connect your crystal core to awaken it." Rami stepped forward and placed the glowing core into a small slot on the pillar. The moment it touched, the entire chamber came alive. Light spread across the walls, forming patterns that looked like stars. The ground shook and a deep hum filled the room. "It is working," Alara said. "The signal is rising." Rami smiled, but his relief lasted only a moment. The door behind them burst open and red light filled the hall. The Dracs had arrived. Alara turned sharply. "They are inside. Stay behind me." The machines entered the chamber, moving with sharp precision. Their eyes burned bright red. The leader among them was taller than the rest, its body covered in black armor shaped like blades. It raised an arm and a burst of energy shot toward Alara. She blocked it with a wave of golden light, but the force shook the room. Rami ducked behind the pillar. The hum of the beacon grew stronger, and the lights around him flashed faster. He looked at Alara, who fought with graceful movements, her hands weaving golden patterns through the air. Each motion sent a wave of energy that shattered the nearest machines. But for every Drac she destroyed, two more appeared. Rami felt helpless. He wanted to fight, but he did not know how to control the power inside him. Then he remembered what Ilara had said, that the light answered the heart. He placed his hand on the glowing pillar. The warmth of the energy spread through his arm and into his chest. He closed his eyes and tried to focus on one thought, that he wanted to protect this place, to protect Ilara, to protect what still remained of hope. The light inside the pillar changed from gold to bright blue. A wave of energy spread across the room, throwing the nearest Drax backward. Rami's body glowed with soft blue light, his eyes shining like stars. Ilara turned to look at him and smiled. "Good, Rami, let it flow through you." He raised his hands and the light answered. Streams of energy moved from his fingertips like living water, striking the Drax and breaking their armor. The machines tried to advance, but their weapons melted under the blue and gold energy that filled the chamber. The leader of the Drax stepped forward through the smoke. Its voice was deep and metallic. "The Alliance will never rise again. The light will fade." Rami's voice was steady. "Not while I am here." The Drax leader fired a powerful blast straight at him. The beam struck his chest, sending a shock through his body, but instead of falling, Rami absorbed the energy. The light within him grew stronger. He pushed his hand forward, sending the same energy back. The blast hit the leader and shattered its chest. The machine fell to the ground, breaking into pieces. The remaining Drax stopped moving. Their red eyes dimmed and went dark. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the beacon. Ilara walked to Rami and placed her hand on his shoulder. "You did it. The light of the Alliance burns again." Rami looked around at the glowing chamber. The beacon's light rose through the ceiling, shooting into the sky like a column of fire. He could see it through the open roof, piercing the clouds and spreading across the stars. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Ilara looked up at the beam of light. "Now the free worlds will see our signal. They will know that the humans have returned. But the shadow will also see it." "We must prepare," Rami nodded slowly. He felt tired but filled with purpose. The power inside him still glowed softly, but it no longer scared him. It felt like a part of who he was meant to be. Ilara walked to the pillar and touched the crystal core. It now shone brighter than before. "This world will live again," she said. "The bond between our people is no longer broken." Rami looked at her. "Will the Drax return?" "Yes," she said. "They will come again, stronger than before. The shadow that commands them does not forgive defeat. But next time, we will not face them alone." Outside, the beam of light continued to rise, spreading across the night. From far away in the sky, faint flashes of other lights began to appear, answering the call. Ilara turned to Rami, her expression calm but proud. "You have awakened the heart of the stars. You have done what no human has done in thousands of years. You are the bridge between our worlds." Rami smiled faintly. "Then I will not stop until that bridge is built." The tower shook gently as the beacon stabilized. The ground outside began to glow with new life. The forests that had been dark started to shine again, as if the planet itself was waking from a long sleep. Ilara looked out the doorway and said, "This world remembers you, Rami. The stars remember you. Soon the others will too." Rami stepped beside her, watching the glowing beam rise higher into the heavens. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged not just to one world, but to many. As they stood together in the light of the beacon, the promise of the old alliance was reborn. The shadows had been pushed back, but the true battle was still ahead. The stars above shimmered brightly, and the Tower of Memory sang with the voices of the past, calling across the galaxies to all who still believed in the light. The sky above the Tower of Memory was filled with lines of light stretching across the horizon. The beacon's glow reached far beyond the world, calling to those who still remembered the ancient alliance. Rami and Ilara stood at the edge of the platform, watching the stars shimmer like silver sparks. For the first time in many years, the silence of the world felt alive. The ground was warm beneath their feet, and the air carried the scent of renewal. The once dark forests around them now glowed faintly with golden leaves and bright streams that sang softly as they flowed. Ilara turned to Rami. "The signal has reached the outer systems," she said. "They have seen the light. Soon they will come." Rami looked at her with a faint smile. "And the Drax?" Her expression grew calm but serious. "They are retreating for now. Their control was broken when you destroyed their leader. But their master, the one who commands them from the shadows, will not rest.
He has seen the beacon."
He will come himself." Rami looked toward the stars. He could almost feel the distant gaze of something vast and cold watching them. "Then we must be ready," Ilara nodded. She placed her hand on the glowing pillar beside them. "There is something you should see," she said softly. The light of the pillar brightened and the air around them shimmered. The platform shifted and suddenly the two of them were surrounded by images made of light. The stars formed shapes that moved slowly, showing worlds, ships, and people, memories of the old alliance. Rami watched in silence as the vision unfolded. He saw humans standing beside beings of many forms, working together, laughing, exploring the stars. Then came the war, fire, destruction, and the rise of the Dracs. The light faded and only the sound of the wind remained. "This is what was lost," Ilara said quietly. "The bond between our worlds. The dream that all life could stand together. You carry the same spark that once united us." Rami listened carefully. "Why me? There must be others stronger than me." Ilara looked at him gently. "Strength does not come from power alone. It comes from the heart that refuses to surrender. The Dracs could not understand that. But you, a human, can. That is why the beacon answered you." He fell silent. Deep inside, he felt both fear and pride. He had never asked for this, yet something told him this was always meant to happen. As they spoke, the sound of engines filled the sky. Rami looked up and saw distant lights approaching. They were not red like the Drac ships, but silver and gold. The air trembled as large vessels descended from the clouds. Ilara's eyes brightened. "They have come," she said. The ships landed near the tower, their hulls shining like mirrors. From them stepped figures of different forms, tall, short, winged, and scaled, the free races of the stars. They carried the banners of the old alliance which had not been seen for thousands of years. One of them, a tall being covered in soft blue armor, stepped forward and bowed. "We received your call, Queen Ilara. The light of the beacon has awakened us." Ilara nodded respectfully. "And this is Rami of Earth," she said, "the one who awakened the heart of the stars." The being turned to Rami and looked at him with eyes that glowed like crystal. "Then the stories were true," he said softly. "A human still walks among us." Rami felt a little unsure but bowed his head. "I am honored to meet you all. I only did what was right." The being smiled faintly. "Sometimes that is all it takes to change the stars." While the new arrivals began setting up defenses around the tower, Rami and Ilara stood together, watching them work. Ships lifted supplies, soldiers built shields, and the air buzzed with energy. The alliance was rising again, and hope spread like fire through the camp. But far above, in the darkness beyond the moons, another light began to stir. A red pulse flashed briefly, like a heartbeat of something ancient and powerful. Ilara noticed it first. "He is coming," she said quietly. Rami followed her gaze. "The master of the Dracs. Yes, his name is Vorn. He was once part of the alliance before the shadow took him. He turned his heart to darkness and built the Dracs from his hate. He believes all light must be controlled." Rami clenched his fists. "Then we will stop him together." Ilara looked at him with pride. "You have the courage of the first humans. I believe you will." Hours passed and the night deepened. The stars above flickered as if preparing for war. The beacon stood tall, shining brighter than ever. Suddenly the ground trembled again. A vast ship appeared in the sky, black as night and shaped like a blade. The Dracs had returned, and with them came Vorn. The alliance ships rose into the air, their engines roaring. Light and shadow clashed above the tower as beams of gold and red filled the sky. The air shook with the sound of battle. Rami ran beside Ilara toward the heart of the tower where the beacon burned. "We must protect the core," she said. "If Vorn destroys it, the alliance will fall again." Rami nodded and held the crystal pendant she had given him. The light inside it glowed brighter. When Vorn's voice came through the air, it was deep and echoing. "You cannot stop the tide. The age of flesh and light is over. The stars belong to the machine." Rami stepped forward, raising the pendant high. "The stars belong to all who live, not to fear and control." Vorn's ship fired a massive beam at the tower. The ground shook, but Rami lifted his hands. The blue and gold light within him burst out, meeting the red beam halfway. The sky exploded with color. Energy rippled across the world, tearing through the Drac ships. The blast was so strong that it lit up the night like day. When the light faded, the dark ship cracked and began to fall apart. Vorn's voice screamed and then vanished into silence. The Drax machines fell still. The battle was over. The Alliance ships hovered quietly in the sky. The air was filled with falling sparks that glowed like stars. Ilara turned to Rami. "You did it," she said softly. "The shadow has ended." Rami's chest rose and fell with deep breaths. "We did it together," he said. The tower's light spread again, reaching farther than ever before. Across the galaxy, countless worlds saw the signal and knew that the Dracs were no longer rulers of the stars. The Alliance had returned. Days passed and peace began to settle. The worlds that once hid in fear now came forward to rebuild. Rami stood with Ilara at the edge of the tower once more. The wind was gentle, carrying the song of life that had returned. "What will you do now?" Ilara asked. Rami smiled faintly. "Help rebuild. Teach others what we lost. Maybe one day I will see Earth again." Ilara's voice was calm and kind. "Wherever you go, you carry the light. You are part of us now." He nodded. "And you are part of me." They stood in silence, watching the sunrise spread across the sky. The world shone with golden light, and the stars above burned brighter than ever. The Alliance had risen again, and humanity was no longer forgotten. The light of one human heart had changed the fate of the stars. And as the morning sun touched the Tower of Memory, the universe itself seemed to whisper, "The age of light has returned."